Now that your father's gone, pack your things and find a new home. This was never really yours anyway. The words hit me like a slap. I walked out of my own house with a single suitcase, no goodbye, no second glance, just tears streaming down my face while my stepchildren watched from the window, smirking. But what they didn't know was, I had one secret left. And it would change everything. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and tap like if you're ready for a story of betrayal, dignity, and the quietest revenge you'll ever hear. The funeral was dignified. Reserved. A sea of black dresses, stiff hugs, and shallower condolences. But behind every polite nod, behind every smile that didn't quite reach the eyes, I could feel it. The shift. The moment grief stopped and business began. Alan, my husband, hadn't even been lowered into the ground yet, and already, the room was full of quiet strategy. The chapel was full of flowers. Arranged by me. White lilies. Blue hydrangeas. The ones he used to bring home on Thursdays, just because. I stood at the front beside his casket, hands gently clasped. The gold band still on my finger. I wasn't ready to take it off. I wasn't sure I ever would be. People passed by with the usual lines. He was a great man. He did so much for the company. He left behind a legacy. But none of them looked me in the eye. None of them said, "You'll be all right, Ellie. We've got you." From the far row, Jenna and Liam sat like they'd been carved out of ice. She wore a tight black sheath dress and a string of pearls that used to belong to Ellen's first wife. I noticed. She wanted me to. They whispered back and forth, careful not to look in my direction. Not once did Jenna's eyes meet mine. When the service ended, I stayed. Just a moment longer. Alone with the weight of silence. I placed my hand on the lid of the casket and leaned in, quietly. "I'll be all right, Alan," I whispered. "I know what you left me." Outside, clouds hung low like wet wool. People slowly peeled off to their cars, umbrellas opening like black flowers. I stayed behind. Liam was the first to approach. No hug. No softness. Just a quiet, curt, "We'll meet you at the house. We've arranged a few things. Just to make everything smoother." I tilted my head. "Smoother?" He nodded. His gaze never met mine. "You'll see." And then he turned and left. Jenna lingered just long enough to perform civility. An air kiss, a frozen smile. "Don't worry," she said. "We'll take care of everything." Then she walked away. No glance back. Only the sound of her heels fading down the gravel path. I stood there, at the edge of the cemetery, the last one to leave. The wind sharp, my coat wrapped tight, my name already disappearing from their plans. But just as I turned, I saw it. A folded slip of paper, tucked under the funeral wreath, barely visible. It hadn't been there earlier. And it was addressed to me. Grief doesn't end at the funeral. Sometimes, it begins the morning after. When the coffee's bitter, the silence is sharp, and the people you trusted finally show you who they are. The kitchen smelled like burnt toast and old intentions. The kind of morning where even the light felt unwelcome, creeping through the blinds like an intruder. I sat at the head of the table in Alan's robe. My robe now. Hands around a warm mug I hadn't really sipped from. I was still wearing the black from yesterday. Still hadn't changed. Liam sat across from me, scrolling silently through his phone. No eye contact. No small talk. Jenna hovered by the counter, pouring herself coffee like she owned the pot, and everything around it. Then, without even looking at me, she said it. "Now that Alan's gone, it's probably time you find somewhere else to live." Just like that. I looked up, not sure I'd heard her right. But she was already turning toward the table, walking slowly, gracefully, like this was all rehearsed. "This was never really your house, Ellie. Not in the legal sense." Liam didn't look up from his screen, just added, as if reading from a lined sheet, "We've already scheduled the locksmith. He'll be here Monday." The air left the room. And for a moment, I couldn't feel my fingers. I set the mug down carefully. The smallest sound. The only sound. "You're locking me out of my own home?" I asked, my voice quieter than I meant. Jenna smiled, soft, professional, PR-friendly. "It's not personal. It's just, what makes sense. For the estate." The estate. Like my marriage was a transaction. Like my life here was a line item on a spreadsheet they couldn't wait to delete. I stood up slowly, straightened the hem of my robe like armor. "Alan and I built this life together. Everything in this home, everything in that will." Jenna cut me off. "The will hasn't been read yet, has it?" Her smile thinned. "So, until then, let's keep things simple." Liam finally looked up, just for a second, and then right back down. Like I wasn't even worth the confrontation. I walked out of that kitchen without a word. I packed in silence. One suitcase. No photos. No heirlooms. No fights. Just my clothes, my toothbrush, and Alan's journal. That, they hadn't touched. That, they couldn't. As I zipped the suitcase shut, Jenna appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. "Don't take anything that doesn't belong to you." She smirked, and for the first time I realized they thought they'd already won. But what they didn't know. Alan left me more than memories. He left me prepared. Sometimes power doesn't look like shouting. Sometimes it looks like silence. And a single suitcase packed by a woman who's already decided, "You don't get to break me." I didn't take much. Just the things I knew they couldn't fight over. A few changes of clothes. My toothbrush. Alan's journal. No photos, no jewelry. Nothing they'd accuse me of stealing. The suitcase rolled softly across the bedroom floor, its wheels hushed like it didn't want to wake the ghosts. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I didn't even look back. But I felt it. Every part of the house breathing around me like it knew I didn't belong there anymore. The bedroom still smelled like Alan. Cedar. Paper. A hint of cologne I kept by the dresser just for him. I passed the study. Didn't open the door. The piano in the living room still had the sheet music open from 2 weeks ago, Moon River, my favorite, now just notes pressed between silence. As I reached the front hallway, I saw her. Jenna. Leaning against the frame of the door like she'd been waiting for this moment. Arms crossed. Eyes cold. Mouth curled into that same half-smile she wore at the funeral. "Going somewhere?" she asked, voice like glass. I didn't answer. I just kept walking. "Don't take anything that doesn't belong to you," she added, nodding toward the bag. I paused. Zipped it closed with one hand. "There's nothing in here you'd want," I said. "Believe me." She said nothing, just watched as I reached for the doorknob, like she couldn't decide whether to gloat or glare. I opened the door slowly. The sun was already out. Too bright for a day like this. I stepped outside. Onto the porch I had swept every fall. Past the garden I had planted each spring. Away from the house where I had been a wife, and now, suddenly, an unwanted guest. I didn't look back. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. But I felt her at the window. Watching. Smirking. Counting the seconds until I disappeared. As I waited for the cab at the end of the driveway, I opened Alan's journal. A piece of paper fell out. It wasn't his handwriting. It was a note I had never seen before. And it was addressed, to me. At exactly 9:01 a.m. I stepped through the glass doors of Henderson Bank. The marble floors were cold under my shoes. The lobby smelled like wealth, not money, but money management. And judgment. Mr. Davidson was already waiting at the far end, behind a long desk and a pair of impersonal eyes. Gray suit. Tight smile. The kind of man who says ma'am instead of your name. He didn't stand up. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said. "How can we help you today?" I handed him the envelope, the one Alan had left. The one with the watermark and the faint scent of cedar. His expression changed. Like a curtain dropped. He glanced at the seal, turned it over, and then back to me. "If you'll follow me," he said, standing up this time. He led me through a narrow hallway, past frosted doors and silent assistants, into a private room, oak-paneled, overly air-conditioned, and sterile as a courtroom. He sat behind a wide desk and opened the envelope carefully. I watched his face as he read. His eyes narrowed. His fingers tapped twice against the desk. Then he stood, walked to a file cabinet. Pulled something out. A thick folder. Sealed. Labeled in Alan's handwriting, "In the event of my death, for Eleanor Whitaker only." He placed it gently in front of me. "Your husband was extremely thorough," Davidson said, his tone now deferential. "There are accounts, investments, and documents here that were not part of the public estate." I blinked. "Not part of the?" He opened the folder. Page after page. Bank accounts I'd never heard of. Stock certificates in my name. A trust fund labeled with my initials. All hidden. All protected. All mine. "You're the primary beneficiary," he said. "Of everything in this file." The room felt smaller. Tighter. Like the walls had leaned in to listen. "Alan said you might need leverage one day," Davidson added quietly. Looks like he was right. I nodded slowly. But inside, everything cracked open. Relief. Rage. Gratitude. Grief. He had prepared me for this. But he hadn't prepared me for how angry I'd be that he'd had to. I closed the folder. Slid it toward me. Looked Mr. Davidson in the eyes. "Has anyone else tried to access this?" He hesitated. Then said, carefully, "Not this, but there have been other attempts. Withdrawals. From separate trusts. Your husband's children." My stomach dropped. "Jenna and Liam?" He gave a slight nod. "I'll show you those records next." As he rose to get the second file, I glanced toward the glass door of the office. And froze. Liam was standing in the bank lobby. Watching me. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a stack of papers, with your name on them. And sometimes, revenge doesn't begin with a plan. It begins with proof. I sat perfectly still in the office chair, my hands resting gently on Alan's folder, the one filled with things I didn't even know existed. Accounts. Portfolios. Trusts. All built, for me. Not for the family name. Not for Jenna. Not for Liam. For Eleanor Whitaker. Davidson returned with another file, thinner, more worn. He placed it beside the first. "This is from the Children's Trust. Originally meant for your step-grandsons, Tyler and Jake. You'll want to see this." I opened it slowly. Each page hit harder than the last. Withdrawals. Over $300,000. Marked as emergency repairs. Educational advancement, property maintenance. But the signatures weren't Alan's. They weren't mine either. They were Liam's. And Jenna's. Line after line, their names. Their handwriting. It wasn't just mismanagement. It was theft. From their own children. From Alan's legacy. From the very future he'd tried to protect. I felt something crack in me. Not a break, exactly. Something colder. The kind of cold that no longer hopes for apology. The kind that plans. Davidson spoke softly. "We discovered it after your husband's passing. But without clear authorization, we couldn't act." He paused. "With your name on the master trust, now, we can." I nodded once. No tears. No words. I just looked down at Alan's signature. Still protecting me. Even now. And for the first time since the funeral, I knew exactly what I had to do. I stood, gathered the files, and buttoned my coat. "One more thing," I said, turning to Davidson. "Does Jenna know this trust exists?" He hesitated. "No. Not this one. Not the private account your husband built for you. He kept it off the books." "Good. Let her believe I walked out with nothing. Let her keep underestimating me." Tucked into the back of Alan's folder was something I hadn't seen before. A sealed envelope. No label. No return. Just my name. I opened it. Inside was a single page. Typed. "If you're reading this, they've already turned on you. Do not trust Catherine Royce without caution. She helped me build the structure, but she's loyal to herself first. Everything you need is in the study drawer. You'll know which one." My breath caught. Not trust Catherine? The one woman who seemed to be on my side? Alan had seen something I hadn't. And now, I needed to find out if she was protecting me, or playing me. I stepped out of the bank, folder in hand. Across the street, Catherine Royce stood beside her car. Smiling. Waiting. Like she already knew what I'd found. There's something colder than grief. It's the moment you realize the people you opened your home to have been stealing from the children who still call you grandma. Back at the motel, I laid the files out across the small desk. The hum of the air conditioner was the only sound. Steady, mechanical, like a countdown. Alan had always said numbers don't lie. People do. But bank records? They're honest, even when the people behind them aren't. Line by line, I traced the theft. Over $300,000 gone. Jenna and Liam hadn't even tried to hide it well. They thought no one would ever look. They thought he'd always be alive to keep things clean. But he wasn't. And I was looking now. It wasn't just withdrawals. It was how they labeled them, like insults dressed up as accounting. Emergency dental work. Pre-college prep. Roof leak. But there was no roof leak. And Tyler and Jake, my step-grandsons, hadn't even started applying to colleges yet. They hadn't just stolen money, they had rewritten the narrative. They had erased the future Alan wanted for his grandchildren. My hand shook, not from fear, but from clarity. For so long, I had tried to make a place at their table. Tried to believe step didn't mean second class. But this? This was war. And they drew the first line. I picked up my phone. Scrolled through the contacts. Tyler. Jake. I hadn't spoken to them in weeks. They weren't part of the push to exile me. But they hadn't defended me either. I pressed call. "Hello?" Tyler's voice. Uncertain. "Hi, sweetheart. It's Ellie." Silence. Then, "Hi, I didn't ask how school was. Didn't ask if he was okay. I need you to do something," I said. "Ask your father where your college fund went." Another silence. Then a quiet, "What?" "Just ask him. Then call me back. Please." He didn't argue. Didn't ask why. He just said, "Okay." I hung up. Then called Jake. Left the same message. Let the truth come from them. Let the cracks begin inside the house. I set the phone down. Then it rang. Unknown number. No name. Just static, then a voice I didn't recognize. "You need to stop, Mrs. Whitaker. Digging into things that aren't yours won't end well for you." Click. Silence. But it was already too late. Because everything I was digging into was mine. Catherine Royce's office was everything she was: understated, expensive, and impossible to read. Deep mahogany walls. Muted art. A clock that ticked so softly, it almost made you question if time was moving at all. She stood when I entered. Glasses low on her nose. That tight-lipped, professional smile women wear when they're pretending not to be sizing you up. Ellie, she said, motioning to the chair. You look, well. I echoed. I've been exiled, lied to, and threatened. But yes, the motel has running water. Catherine smirked slightly. You always did have bite. She poured tea into delicate china. I didn't touch it. On the desk in front of her sat a sealed envelope. No label. No handwriting. She slid it across to me. Alan left this with me. Told me to give it to you only if they turned on you. I didn't thank her. I just opened it. Inside was a single typed note. You are the legacy. Not the liability. Use what I left you to defend yourself, and trust no one blindly, not even those who helped build it. Alan's words. Written before death. Like he knew this day would come. Why now? I asked, looking up. Why give me this today? Catherine folded her hands, calm as a chess player. Because I saw Jenna at the estate lawyer's office yesterday. They're trying to move quickly. And I suspect, not legally. Her eyes didn't blink when she said it. And because you're not the widow they expected you to be. I studied her. Her posture perfect. Her voice flat. Her expression unreadable. Alan's warning echoed in my mind, do not trust Catherine Royce without caution. Did Alan know what Jenna and Liam were doing with the grandchildren's trust? I asked. Catherine's pause was long. Calculated. He suspected, she finally said. But he didn't want to believe it. Not fully. But you knew. Another pause. Then that same smile, small and sharp. I knew they were capable. I stood. I want all the original documents. The trust revisions. The property contracts. Everything Alan protected, I want it delivered to my lawyer. Catherine raised a brow. You're preparing for war. No, I said, picking up the envelope. I'm preparing to win. As I turned to leave, she spoke again, voice low, just loud enough to land, you should know something before you go. I paused at the door. Alan never told you everything. And what's still locked in that house, might change how you see him. The motel felt quieter that night. Like the walls were holding their breath. I sat cross-legged on the stiff mattress, Alan's journal on one side, the trust documents on the other. All the truth, scattered in papers and signatures. All the proof, but facts don't change people. People change people. And the only ones left who might still care about the truth, were the two they stole from. I picked up the phone. Dialed Tyler first, the older of the two. He answered on the third ring. Ellie? His voice sounded taller than I remembered. Colder, maybe. But not closed. Hi, sweetheart, I said gently. I know it's late. Do you have a second? Sure, yeah. Is everything okay? I smiled softly. That word, okay, didn't mean what it used to. I just need you to do something for me. Don't ask why. Not yet. Okay, ask your father where your college fund went. Silence. Not confused silence. Careful silence. He said it was locked until graduation, Tyler finally replied. Ask again, I said. And listen closely this time. I didn't say goodbye. Didn't need to. I hung up. Then I called Jake. Jake was younger. Blunt. Less trained in the family's politics. He picked up on speaker. Ellie? You okay? Hi, Jake. I need you to ask your mom something. Privately. Okay. Ask her what happened to the money your grandfather left for you and Tyler. Don't let her deflect. Just ask. Then wait. Another pause. Then a quiet, is this about why you're not living at the house? I exhaled, it's about why none of us are going to pretend anymore. They didn't ask more. They just listened. And maybe that was enough. Because the only thing more dangerous than someone with nothing to lose is someone who still has people to fight for. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A message from Tyler. One line. No emojis. No punctuation. He lied. I chose the cafe on purpose. Neutral ground. Public enough to keep voices from rising. Private enough to make sure she heard every word. Jenna arrived right on time. Hair perfect. Lipstick unbothered, that same designer coat I'd once complimented in a Christmas card. She sat across from me with a tight smile, the kind that doesn't even try to be real. Ellie, she said like it tasted sour. This feels unnecessary. I didn't respond. Just slid the folder across the table. Inside, withdrawal slips. Bank statements. Signatures. Alan's original trust document. And a photo of Tyler's message on my phone. She opened it. Read for 5 seconds. Then stopped blinking. Where did you get this? She asked, voice flat. Your father, I said. He left me everything I'd need. Including this. Jenna's mouth twitched, not a smile, not a frown. Just recalculating. You don't understand how complicated this is. Liam and I. You took from your own children, I said calmly. And you tried to erase me while doing it. She looked around. Eyes darting. We weren't alone, a couple across the room, a barista behind the counter, an older man with a newspaper 2 tables down. I lowered my voice even more. You thought I'd walk away quietly. You thought I'd be too polite. Too broken. She said nothing. But I know everything now. Every transfer. Every lie. Every clause Alan buried to keep me protected from you. Her hands trembled slightly. I'd never seen Jenna tremble. What do you want? She asked. Nothing, I said. I already have everything. I stood. Slid the folder back into my bag. The will reading is next week. You should bring your own lawyer. As I turned to leave, a soft voice spoke from behind me. Excuse me, are you Eleanor Whitaker? I turned. A woman I didn't recognize. Late 30s. Smart blazer. Badge clipped to her pocket. She nodded toward the table behind me. Mind if I sit? I think we should talk about Catherine Royce. The room was too quiet for the number of people inside it. Dark paneled walls. Thick drapes pulled halfway shut. A long conference table that felt more like a battlefield than a boardroom. At the head of it sat Patricia Nash, Alan's estate attorney of nearly 20 years. Stone-faced. Calm. A woman who knew how to say devastating things with perfect diction. To her left, Catherine Royce, not speaking. Just observing. To her right, me. Posture straight. Folder closed in my lap. Across from me, Liam. Jenna. Their sons, Tyler and Jake, a few extended family members, trying not to look invested but failing. And then Patricia began. This is the final certified last will and testament of Alan Whitaker. Every shuffle of paper sounded like thunder in the silence. Per the deceased's explicit instructions, the following statements are to be read aloud and made part of the permanent family record. Jenna shifted in her seat. Liam clenched his jaw. Tyler and Jake just stared at the table, somewhere between embarrassed and betrayed. To my wife, Eleanor Whitaker, Patricia read clearly, I leave 60% of my estate, including full ownership of the Whitaker residence, control of all Class A business shares, and all personal assets held under our joint name. Gasps. One audible. One stifled. I didn't react. To my daughter Jenna, I leave 15% of the estate's financial holdings, with a clause for forfeiture in the event of misuse of trust assets. Patricia looked up briefly. The implication hung heavy. To my son Liam, I leave 10%, and a similar forfeiture clause. Jenna leaned forward, lips pale. This must be a mistake. Patricia raised an eyebrow. Your father signed this document 6 months before his passing. Witnessed. Notarized. Sealed. Liam stood halfway, voice sharp. This is manipulation. He would never have done this without pressure. I turned to him calmly. And yet, he did. Patricia continued, unbothered. To Tyler and Jake Whitaker, I leave $100,000 each, to be accessed upon verified enrollment in an accredited college or university. To be held in trust by Eleanor Whitaker. Jake looked up at me. His eyes were red. Tyler looked at his parents like he'd just realized they weren't gods. They were people. And dangerous ones. Then Patricia paused. There is one more item. She pulled out a small, sealed envelope. A codicil. Delivered 2 days before his death. Sealed. Marked for posthumous release. She opened it slowly. Read silently. Then looked up at the room with a kind of finality that sent chills down my spine. This addendum states that if any evidence of pre-death financial misconduct is found involving the children's trust, Eleanor Whitaker is entitled to petition for full control over all family accounts. Gasps again. But this time, not muffled. Said evidence, she added, has been submitted in advance. Verified and archived. She looked directly at Jenna and Liam. You may challenge this in court. But I'd advise you speak to your own legal counsel before proceeding. No one spoke. Until Jenna broke. Her voice cracked in a way I'd never heard. He planned this. I didn't answer. Because she already knew. Liam stood, fast, knocking his chair backward. Stormed out of the room without a word. Jenna stayed seated. Folding in on herself. And for the first time in 20 years, she looked small. Catherine turned to Patricia and whispered something. Patricia nodded, then stood. One final matter. She placed a flash drive on the table. This contains a video message from Alan Whitaker. Recorded 10 days before his death. Intended for this moment, if required. The room went dead silent. Patricia clicked play. Alan's face appeared on the screen. Tired. But clear-eyed. If you're watching this, he began, then the people I love have either failed each other, or finally come clean. Ellie, this was always yours. I just needed to make sure you were safe when I was gone. He looked directly into the camera. And to those who tried to erase her, I hope one day, you understand why that was your biggest mistake. The screen went dark. Tyler stood. Looked right at Jenna. Did you lie to us? Her silence was louder than anything she could have said. And then, Jake stood too. When the truth finally lands, it doesn't ask permission. It just arrives. Loud, undeniable, and impossible to outrun. Especially when your children are the ones demanding it. The next morning, the headlines began. Whitaker estate contested amid family scandal. Millions missing from grandchildren's trust fund, inside the quiet collapse of a legacy. The local press didn't need drama. The documents did all the talking. Catherine Royce made sure of that. A quiet leak here. A nudge to the right journalist there. And suddenly, everyone in our circles, from business partners to former friends, was reading what Jenna and Liam had tried to bury. Meanwhile, I said nothing. No statements. No retaliation. I just sat back, and let the truth speak louder than I ever could. The reckoning didn't come in one dramatic blow. It came in pieces. Tyler moved out 2 days later. Jake stopped answering his parents' calls. Their loyalty hadn't shifted to me exactly. But it had moved away from them. And in a family built on control, that was enough. Jenna tried denial. Liam tried anger. Neither worked. When Patricia invited them back for a closed-door session, they came. No lawyers. No pretense. Just silence. Patricia read aloud the verified misuse. Every dollar. Every false justification. Then she gave them a choice: admit to misuse and surrender your remaining claims, or prepare for full litigation. Jenna cracked first. She didn't cry. Not fully. But her voice trembled like a child in trouble. "We didn't mean to hurt them," she whispered. "We thought we were managing things. Protecting what he built." I didn't flinch. Because I knew that lie too well. It's the lie people tell themselves when they want your crown but none of your scars. Liam tried to interrupt, voice raised, hands shaking, but Patricia shut him down. "The documents are clear. Any further denial is obstruction." I'd advise silence. And for once, he listened. Catherine stood beside me the whole time. Unmoving. Her arms folded like a witness, not a warrior. She didn't smile. Neither did I. Because this wasn't about winning. This was about restoring what Alan had meant to leave behind. Not just money, but intention. Integrity. Legacy. As we exited the building, a journalist called my name. "Mrs. Whitaker, any comment on the family dispute?" I turned. Met her eyes. "No dispute," I said gently. "Just clarity." And I kept walking. That evening, as I returned to the motel, an envelope waited for me at the front desk. No return address. No postage. Inside, a single note: "The house is still legally vulnerable. Check the deed. Quickly." It wasn't signed. But I recognized the handwriting. It was Alan's. 3 weeks passed before I stepped foot on the Whitaker property again. Not as a guest. Not as a tolerated widow. As the legal owner. The deed had been challenged, quietly, subtly, a sleight of hand buried in Alan's old documents. But Patricia had found it. Catherine had enforced it, and the courts had signed the final ruling. The house was mine. All of it. Undisputed. The driveway crunched under my shoes. The same sound it had made every autumn, every return from dinner with Alan, every Sunday morning drive. The garden was overgrown. The porch light was off. But it still felt like home. Not because of the walls. But because of what I'd had to walk through to get back to them. I unlocked the front door. No hesitation. No heart pounding. Just breath. The house greeted me in silence. No one waiting in the hallway. No Jenna in the dining room. No Liam pacing the office. Just space. Mine again. I walked the room slowly. The kitchen. Still smelled like memory. The piano. Still untouched. Alan's study. That's where I stopped. The drawer he always kept locked, bottom left. The one I'd never been curious about. The one he always said, "Not that one." That's where I keep the good stuff. I used the small brass key tucked into the back of his journal. It slid in like it belonged. Inside, one watch. A single photograph of us from our first trip together. And a sealed envelope, thicker than the others. I opened it. A letter. Written by hand. "Ellie, if you're reading this, then they tried to make you disappear. I knew they might. I'm sorry I didn't warn you sooner. But this house, this room, was always your sanctuary. You brought warmth into my life. I tried to build protection around you, but I know now, you never needed armor. You are the steel. This watch was my father's. I wore it when I asked you to marry me. Now it's yours. When you wear it, I hope you remember, you were never the shadow. You were always the sun." I held the watch gently. Felt the weight of it in my palm. Then I slid it on my wrist, not to remember him. But to remember me. I stepped out onto the balcony. The sun was setting, casting gold across the garden. And at the far end of the lawn, by the gate, someone was waiting. Jenna. Alone. No bags. No makeup. Just her. Looking up at the house, like she didn't know if she was allowed to knock. The real revenge wasn't the inheritance. It wasn't the house. It was seeing everything they tried to destroy, restored. With grace. With care. Without needing to gloat. It started with paperwork. Bank transfers. Email threads. Long, quiet calls with lawyers and financial officers who now addressed me as Mrs. Whitaker, with a tone that sounded very different than it had months ago. The Whitaker Trust, the one they bled dry, was rebuilt in full. Not just restored. Redesigned. The clause Alan left me gave full authority to restructure it. So I did. Funds were rerouted. Scholarships put in place. And Tyler and Jake? They didn't just get their college money back. They got choice. Where they studied. How they used it. And most importantly, who they could finally trust. Tyler emailed me first. Thank you. I don't know how we fix this, but I'd like to try. Jake called the same night. You didn't deserve any of it. I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner. I didn't need an apology. But hearing it felt like a door finally opened. 2 months later, we launched the Alan Whitaker Memorial Award for Integrity. Endowed under my name. Structured for students who showed character when no one was watching. Not wealth. Not brilliance. Integrity. At the small launch event, Catherine stood beside me in a navy suit and pearls. Even she seemed changed. Less fortress, more foundation. She leaned over and whispered, "He'd be proud." I didn't reply. Because I wasn't sure if I believed in ghosts. But I believed in momentum. And for the first time in a long time, I was moving forward. There was no grand party. No public speech. Just a soft ceremony in the Whitaker garden, the same one I once planted for anniversaries. Press took a few quiet photos. Tyler and Jake sat in the front row. Catherine clapped with the calm pride of someone who no longer had to calculate the outcome. And Jenna? She was there too. At the very back. Alone. Not hiding. Not interrupting. Just watching. As the guests drifted away, I felt her approach. Not footsteps. Just presence. I turned slightly, and there she was. Jenna. No words yet. Just standing in front of the woman she once tried to erase. Waiting. Not for forgiveness. For permission to speak. Revenge ends when the fight is over. But legacy? Legacy begins the moment you decide, you're not here to win. You're here to lead. The Alan Whitaker Memorial Award ceremony was held in the university's old brick hall. It smelled faintly of paper, wood polish, and something else, possibility. Tyler and Jake sat in the front row, ties slightly crooked, eyes steady. Their mother sat near the back. Not out of shame. Out of humility. Jenna didn't hide anymore. But she didn't expect anything either. And that was enough for now. I stood at the podium with Alan's watch on my wrist, still ticking. Not just in time, but in rhythm. Integrity, I said into the microphone, isn't about being perfect. It's about being consistent. Quietly. Even when no one is watching. Especially then. People clapped. Cameras flashed gently. But what mattered most wasn't who heard me, it was who understood. Afterward, people came to shake my hand. Some I remembered from Alan's board meetings. Others were strangers, young applicants, mentors, faculty. Catherine stood off to the side, arms folded, pride tucked behind her glasses like a secret she wasn't sharing. She didn't need to. When the crowd thinned, I turned. And Jenna was there. Still waiting. Still alone. We stood in silence for a few long moments. Then she spoke. I was wrong. Her voice wasn't shaky. It was firm. Like a woman who had finally stopped performing. I don't expect anything from you, but I needed to say it. I looked at her. At the lines stress had carved into her face. At the eyes that no longer sparkled with control, but with regret. And I nodded once. Thank you. I didn't offer a hug. Or a seat at my table. But I didn't turn her away either. And maybe, that was enough. I walked out into the evening light. The air was cool. Crisp. Hopeful. Alan's watch ticked quietly against my skin. And for the first time since he died, I didn't feel like I was walking away from anything. I was walking into something. A future of my own design. One not built on vengeance, but on resilience. And truth. Because I wasn't broken. I was never lost. I was just getting started. Ellie's power wasn't just in reclaiming what was hers, it was in choosing who she would become after.